One. Hello, this is the first episode of the second season of the Youth for Discourse podcast, and today we're going to be talking about the death penalty. And we'll get started with how everyone just introduce themselves, kind of, and then we can get started with having discussion on the subject. My boy Aaron, you want to go first?
So we are discussing the death penalty or the capital punishment, same thing, but actually someone else will go first. I'll think I'll think about like a good discussion later.
You don't want to initiate the conversation?
Or we're just like introducing ourselves, like, hi, my name is Aaron.
Okay.
Hi. I don't know, you can
Okay,
say your thoughts, but you don't have to. Like, yeah.
Okay, I'm Aaron. I am actually one of the execs for the Youth for Discourse Club. This is my first time being on the Youth for Discourse podcast, and yeah.
Okay, pretty epic. Yeah, anyone else
Yeah.
want to go?
Rohit, would you like to go?
I don't really feel like the introduction is necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys just want to jump right into it?
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have like some... Oh, sorry?
Nothing.
Oh. Does anyone want to have some, like, put an opening thought out there on the death penalty to just get conversation going? I can think of
Alright.
a couple.
Alright, I'll initiate. Is the death penalty morally permissible? Yes or no?
Ooh. All right. My thoughts on Rohit, my thoughts on your question is that if the crime is so severe personally, and if it would be like around like a life sentence, I would say the prisoner deserves it.
Personally, I had to disagree. Because I believe justice should be centered around reconciliation as opposed to punishment. And that we should look at trying to redeem people as opposed to hurting people.
I second that.
I'd like to add my input on the first question, and I think yes, it is. I think we can. I think it's. What am I trying to say? I think that in the way the death penalty, if carried out in a timely and a manner that works, unlike the U.S. where I live, I feel like it is completely justifiable, and I think that is justice. If that answers the question.
So what kind of death penalty works then if the U.S. isn't doing it right, and it's a country that's notorious for the death penalty?
It's not doing it right because the people who are found guilty end up serving their entire lives on death row. They don't end up dying. Plus, the system just needs to be reformed. There's too many people who slip through the cracks, so to say. That makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Rohi, I had a question for you. So, you said that you believe in like the reconciliation model, or like the model of try to rehabilitate people. Would you say
Yes.
that would you go as far as to say that even like life in prison
Hitler?
without the possibility of parole would be
Form of
impermissible?
reconciliation? Good question. Alright. This is my stance. And that is, I think is more morally permissible as opposed to death penalty. Because even though prison isn't the most ideal place, at least you're still trying to provide for someone and give him a chance to live, as opposed to just, sending him off.
So, is there something deeper than just rehabilitation that's there then? Because in both cases, both the death penalty and in both the death penalty and life in prison without the possibility of parole, they don't necessarily have the chance to rehabilitate in society. So would there be something deeper that you'd be thinking of, as well to like differentiate between the two?
That's a good point. I'd have to reflect on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of the death penalty anyhow? If life in prison is already suffering enough.
I think that the death penalty is the response to a moral injustice or something that you just cannot pay for. I think that people who say, oh, they should just suffer, they don't really get the point. I think that the death penalty is put in so that it's like an example. If you do this, you will lose your life.
But has it been adequate enough to actually deter people from committing crimes? I mean, we still see horrible crimes happening in places where the capital punishment is a thing.
Well, in most of those places, which usually I'd refer to the USA, they will expect to get either life in prison or they will just rot on death row.
Right.
I think that it completely needs to be reformed, but at the end of the day, the death penalty is definitely a just response to some crimes.
Yes, in certain crimes, yes. So because no, I don't believe that every crime can be rehabilitated, but we ought to change the definition of people who we put in these. Take, for instance, terrorism. It's almost impossible to rehabilitate radical fundamentalists, right?
Mm-hmm. But honestly, I'd go a bit further. I think that anyone who is found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of a first-degree murder, they should lose their lives. If you take someone's life, I believe you lose your right to life.
But what about in cases of second-degree murder, in which this type of murder only happens in the heat of the moment?
That's where it gets a bit more murky. I believe that heat of the moment. I believe that all self-defense should be met with years in prison. If it's out of it's still killing a human life, pretty much. I think you need to be punished for that. But I also think you do not deserve death if you're defending yourself in certain situations. You know what I mean? Pretty much how someone would kill someone if they're doing something non-lethal towards you, if that makes sense.
What about in certain cases? Take, for instance, say somebody managed to catch their partner sleeping with somebody, and then they get agitated, and they might react in some way that's violent.
Yeah, that's actually what I was referring to. Pretty much you responding way too harshly to what's happening instead of, just...
That sounds like an issue that's caused by a lack of mental or emotional regulation. Shouldn't we provide mental health services so people don't get to the point where they murder others rather than, having a death penalty where people don't even get help.
But we're not discussing that problem. We're discussing when people get through that and when inevitably they kill people because even if you lose the most.
But I'm saying if you kill the life, and you don't help these people, the cycle is just going to continue.
But if
you're
they've already committed the crime,
a violent society.
But if they've already committed the crime, they have killed someone in cold blood, first-degree murder. Do you think that their right to life is still there? Because me personally, I do not.
Yes.
We'd have to agree to disagree then.
Wait, so I find a lot of irony in this. So you're saying that killing people is wrong, yet you're advocating for killing people?
If you kill someone, you lose your right to life.
Okay, but tell me, what makes a murder right and what makes a murder wrong?
There's the difference between murder and then killing someone out of pretty much payback, if that makes sense. I think if you kill someone... No, there is a big difference. You took an innocent person's life. You are no longer innocent.
No, what defines innocence?
Not killing someone?
But you're killing someone in return, so aren't you no longer innocent?
I mean, maybe in a perfect world we wouldn't have to kill everyone, but honestly, I think that we should kill first-degree murderers.
So not killing people makes you not innocent, yet we need to kill people for killing people.
You're not giving a very nuanced argument here. You have to come up with the demarcation.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
No, not you, Sam. I'm talking about the American dude.
I'm not Sam.
Or whatever.
Oh, just call me Rohit.
Okay, I'm trying to think of like ways in which we can like kind of like unpack a lot of these different ideas. So, Xenokill, would you say that you believe that the purpose of the justice system is more to punish as opposed to rehabilitate? That's supposed to punish
Yes.
those who do wrong. Whereas Rohit, it sounds like you would disagree. And Mem, what should I call you? Should I just call you by like your real name or Discord?
Mem?
Ma'am, would you prefer your real name being
Yeah,
said
but
on the
I'm sorry,
podcast, or-
Xenokill, but like,
Hmm.
I think something that's like wrong, faulty with your argument is you're assuming like good and bad in how you're assuming that like the person who murdered the other individual must have somehow been in a position of wrong, and that the person who's executing must somehow be in a position of right. But what if the roles were flipped?
Rohit, would you say that
Hold up. Wait. Pyro, I'm sorry for cutting you off
Okay.
there.
Alright.
What do you mean if the positions were flipped?
But here's the thing. So, do you believe? So you believe that murder? Obviously, you believe that murder can be justified since you're advocating for the death penalty, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay, let's
if
say.
the death penalty murder.
Okay. Let's flip the role. So let's say that this was a group of civil rights people who were
Mhm.
tired of their oppression, and were trying to kill an official who was oppressing them. And after killing this official, they are then sent to prison for execution. Is that justified, even though they're a civil rights group that is trying to fight for their freedom and their rights?
It depends on the
Well-
context here, because they're using violence to get ahead when there are other democratic means to actually promote their
Right.
own ideas.
Right.
Yeah, but democratic
I
means
think
don't
that I
necessarily
think
have to
that
work.
I think that no, I think that in that sense there. So I feel like it's a bit too ambiguous, if that's the word. Honestly, I'm not great with words,
All right.
but I think that that's not too detailed. Like, has this official, you said, have they enacted in any moral wrongs? Have they completely like gone out of their way to do this to someone else? Because I
Yeah.
think that punishment is justified. But if it's just a person doing their job, I think that would not be justified.
All right. Yeah,
You
so
get
this is-
you get what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's just something I find I find faulty about this debate is that we have like a limited understanding of the context,
Mhm.
and yet we're assuming this context that nobody established.
Right. I was assuming in a non-corrupt situation, not as corrupt at least as
Yeah, I know
some.
what you mean. You're assuming
I'm assuming
in the
there is
standpoint that like
there is
somebody,
a active justice
yeah,
in the world,
I know what
and
you
they
mean.
are
I know what you mean. You're assuming that the person who committed the murder did it out of an did it out of like injustice as opposed
Yes.
to justice,
Mhm.
and that the people who are the executioners are enacting justice.
yes.
But I believe this is like I believe like one of the reasons why your argument is faulty is because we haven't actually established the real context yet.
Right. I think I'd agree with you on that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because like the death penalty, I think this is one of the reasons why I believe the death penalty is universally problematic, is because the ideas of right and wrong aren't even firmly established. If the
Mhm.
ideas of right and wrong are not firmly established, then who are we to say that we are enacting justice?
It's
Is
true.
that a fair and valid argument?
That is a valid argument.
Thank you.
I would think it is a valid argument to have. I just personally don't agree with it.
Yeah, but I
Usually
respect your
everybody-
opinion in return, so don't worry.
Anyone else want to take the floor?
I just don't like people dying. Period.
I don't know. I think.
Based.
Oh, sorry. You can go. I'm not-
Is it, you know,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man. I just think rehabilitation is way too lenient on certain crimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would oppose that
not
because
really. Like,
we've
I-
seen that
I honestly think
that
rehabilitation might be a bit of a
restoration
naive
to lower
place.
Yeah, I understand what Xenophil is saying, but kind of have to disagree with it.
It is about deterrence.
All right, Aaron,
No, I
you
mean-
kind of talked about being pro death penalty in certain circumstances. What would be your position on that more broadly?
Well, I'm not gonna say personally, but my stance on being pro death penalty would be more focusing on like more severe crimes that I actually don't like think that some individual that have committed these severe crimes don't have the right to life, because well, I think domestic terrorism as an example, I think the right to life should be taken away because I do consider it as a severe crime, and that's just my stance on it. You guys, anyone could agree or disagree.
I don't think I have a what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, I'm mainly just here to listen. I don't think I have like a sturdy enough foundation to fill an argument of. I just have my own personal principles. I don't like the cons. I just don't think two wrongs make a right.
But all right, to a little bit to respond to that a bit. To me, I don't like the idea of rapists, child molesters, shit like that, leaving prison. I think, and if they're just going to be there for life, I think their crimes are big enough for them to be killed.
Well, what's better, having them sit in their cells for life, without any chance of parole or getting out, or getting a quick way out with death?
I think that they should be gotten rid of. They're criminals.
Okay,
I hate those crimes are absolutely ludicrous.
Oh yeah,
They are
no,
unforgivable. I agree.
I agree with you,
Unforgivable
man.
crime.
But these people do their actions out of
Period.
trauma, and out of like a mindset that they don't actually really realize is wrong. So in their eyes, they're innocent, but another person
Yeah,
would
but-
see that same way.
the problem
And
is
because they're
justice for
innocent in
who-
their eyes,
The problem
who
is
are
that
we to
they've
say that they must deserve death just because we have a disagreement with them?
No,
I don't
But-
think that's really a good argument to make against that. Me
No,
personally,
I'm just commenting on what
think
I'm
that-
saying.
I think that rapists and child molesters and first-degree murderers that have done it out of just murdering, I think that they have completely earned their seat in the death penalty. They've earned their seat.
In my opinion, it's an easy way out for them. I would prefer that they have life in prison,
They actually suffer.
that they actually have a punishment instead of getting an easy way out in death. Because a lot of the time, especially, these people don't think about the consequences. They don't care about what consequences they get.
Right, but then if we're thinking about, I'm guessing, a
Really?
government that
Death,
funds
not even
the
a punishment.
prison, a government that funds the prisons, our tax dollars will be given to keep them alive.
Oh no! You want to know something incredibly ironic? Actually,
Yeah.
death penalty actually costs more money because of the court appeals. So
Ah,
it's actually cheaper to
Well-
keep someone in prison for the rest of their life
now
than
that's
actual
proper
than
research
actual
right there.
death
That must be
penalty
Well, that is
because
an
of the court
example-
appeals.
Well, that is an example of what I touched on earlier, which is I think that the thing needs to be completely reformed, completely just upended and put in a new system for death penalty. I think that if you are tried and found guilty without a reasonable doubt, there is so much evidence of it that you couldn't even fake the amount of evidence there was. You know what I mean?
there isn't a
You
death
should just-
penalty in Canada in the first place. There's nothing to upend.
I'm not in Canada. Sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, sorry. I forgot that not everybody here is in Canada. Here in Canada, we don't have-
I'm going to be honest with you though. The evidence argument is problematic because some individuals would argue that the amount of evidence doesn't matter, and that if we convict this individual for this crime, even without this substantial amount of evidence, that in itself should still be enough to account for death penalty.
Yeah,
So I
but I
understand
don't
where you're
think that.
coming from.
I don't
No,
think that.
Yeah. But
That does not-
But the ideology that you advocate for would eventually lead to that stance. Not because you believe in that, but because other people would work off of your ideology, and then after working off of your ideology would advocate for that.
Well, that's why I think we need to come up with. You need to put in a system that perpetuates itself, that keeps itself sustained, makes it so that there are things that do not change about the system. There are
Okay, so-
things like fundamental pillars that have to stay.
But if the death penalty is like the end all be all for like severe crimes, wouldn't it make sense to make your crime as severe as possible since there's only one ending to it? Like if I'm going to blow things up, I will maximize it because I know that I'm going to suffer from the death penalty.
It's a good point, honestly.
Would that remain the same though for permanent life though?
Mm-hmm. That is actually a really good counterpoint.
So in that case, would that be an argument for in fact reducing punishments? Period.
No, I don't think it would because just because of how prison works, and if you're deemed to be a super dangerous offender, you already put in like maximum security plus solitary confinement.
But like so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially the argument is that a person is going to essentially accelerate their actions because regardless of how more intense like they engage in illegal activity, they're going to get the same punishment regardless. There's this death penalty.
that is true. Yeah.
That could also apply to some extent to life in prison, I think. So would that potentially be an argument for, in fact, reducing? Would you want to reduce punishments, period, so that they're not permanent, and then so that therefore you have more stepping stones?
I think there's also another problem with your point. I don't know who was talking before, Pyro, but in response, I think that the example you used was an explosion or something like big, like a big crime. I think that if they're already going to do that, they're already just going to do it to the maximum. An explosion in no matter what government, under any government in the earth right now, like pretty much terrorism, because setting off a bomb like that would definitely count as it. I think that automatically gets you like the highest spot in prison. They're already going to maximize it under no matter what system. Something that big or on the level of it is automatically going to be maximized.
No, but
that makes sense.
I think there's something that you're like missing to. I mean, actually, I think there's something that you're not considering, and that is like that example that you're stating could actually be applied to other situations outside of an explosion. For example, if someone knows that him committing first-degree murder is enough for him to get, the death penalty, why not just kill more people rather than just solely focus on one individual? If the severity of the punishment doesn't change, if the severity of your act doesn't actually change the punishment.
Because people don't just kill people for fun.
That argument
there's usually an actual motive behind it.
Yeah, that honestly does not look at the big picture, because when you look at a murderer, it's usually one of two things. They're looking at a first degree, they're looking at someone to kill. Like, they have a reason for killing that person. But when you're looking at, like, someone who is a mass murderer, someone who just, for example, shoots up a crowd, they are already planning to do that. It doesn't really matter which one does the other. I feel like it just doesn't look at the big picture, if that makes sense.
What if the first degree murder is in a different context? Say this person actively hunted down their child's rapist, and what do we then condemn that person to
send them to a gulag?
Gulag.
Because they actively.
Gulag. I will have Albert eat their eyeballs out, and then broth their liver in vat of chicken broth.
Okay.
That is a good point, though. That like we can't just look at crimes from a legal perspective, but also a moral perspective.
Because some people are going to seek their own vigilante justice. Because if you know somebody who was personally affected by another criminal, and let's say we were to hunt them down and kill them, right? Let's suppose this person is a rapist. Do we then kill the person who carried out do we then condemn the person who carried out the vigilante justice to provide justice for perhaps their child or their wife? Because they try to avenge them by killing, suppose, their rapist. Because it would constitute as first-degree murder if they actively planned this out.
Yeah, that is first-degree murder.
Excuse me, guys.
I feel like that is a very specific example, but it's definitely a valid one. I'd have to think it out for a minute.
I know, because there's going to be a few cases where they're going to be exceptional. Some cases that are exceptions.
Like that, I believe, in my eyes, in the way I think, in my personal justice, I think that would be. I think that'd get you a few years in prison because you still took their life, but they killed a criminal that was not caught by the system.
Now, let's say they served their time in prison, say like 5 years or however long
Yeah.
they served.
I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So, wait, can I bring up a topic?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Alright, so, can we talk about statistics of death penalties, such as how much people have been killed due to that death penalty and
Oh, I honestly don't know enough about statistics and the stuff of it, so I'm just going to listen to him on this topic.
Before we
Yes, I-
transition to another topic, there's actually one more thing I want to mention about the previous topic. And that is, Xenokill said that the court system needs to be changed because it's not right how much court appeals cost, right? Because with this current state, it actually costs more to send someone to the death penalty than actually to keep them in prison for life. But
Yeah.
isn't that argument problematic? Because let's say someone didn't commit the act that they were accused of, and because of this is why the court appeals are there, right? But shouldn't it be in someone's right to be able to have all those court appeals since their life is on the line? So,
I think that
so
death penalty is a final, this is the biggest thing you could get, because I think that taking a life is probably the biggest, most important subject of the matter. I think that if you are convicted of the death penalty under a perfect system that I've been pretty much pushing here, is that you need to be you killed this person. You definitely killed this person. You definitely raped this person. You definitely did whatever. You definitely did it without a reasonable doubt. There is just so much evidence towards it that I think that they should not be able to appeal because they are just guilty, if that makes sense.
Wait. But not allowing someone to have any sort of court appeal is pretty messed up.
Even if the amount of
evidence, but even if the amount of evidence is substantial, to just not be able to just to not allow someone to be able to have their say and to not hear them out is incredibly authoritarian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry to
That
say
is
I am a
incredibly
bit of an authoritarian. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Just a bit, not horribly. It's just there's some things that.
Sorry, it's just I know that argument I made would work effectively on a lot of people, because a lot of people who support the death penalty are ironically extremely libertarian. So
No, they should not be.
Not all of them, but I know
I know.
some people, are
I
are
will
really
admit to being
libertarian.
authoritarian on this subject.
Pardon me?
I will admit to being authoritarian on this subject.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bring up another topic which is not statistics related.
Okay, yeah, now we can go to
okay.
statistics. Sorry, I just wanted to make that comment on the previous topic.
So, I have relatives in the southern United States, such as Texas and Georgia, and yeah, apparently, the death penalty pills are so insane back in the 70s and 80s. What would you guys think of high death penalty rates?
Well, I think that's a sign that something's wrong. And people are quick to point to death penalty in a system where the death penalty is enacted. I think that's actually a really, really bad sign.
Yeah, no, I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's a
Definitely.
problem. So I think this is something that all parties agree on, that this isn't even something that's controversial. Because even in a system, let's say I lived in a system where the death penalty existed, and I couldn't change whether or not the death penalty existed. I would at least advocate for the death penalty to not be something that is like actively used. And I think this
You
is
know,
something that
it's
all
like
parties can agree on.
it's an end all be all. Like that is the worst of the worst. That
It's
is
like
your
the worst, the last thing
Yeah.
that you can resort to.
look for any alternative before that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there's much room for controversy in this one.
On a somewhat
I would argue that torture is worse than the death penalty.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
physical punishment.
Well,
Yeah,
that's-
mean,
I
actually,
think that should just be outlawed in
actually,
law.
oh, sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's already outlawed under like human rights and
Oh no,
stuff.
it
Yeah.
is. It is.
It is.
But the U.S. and China, and I think another country, they still practice torture, but they call it advanced interrogation methods. So that's how they're able
Yeah,
to get away with
They
it.
do it on terrorists and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah, they like
Good
they
old.
use a euphemism of advanced interrogation
Abu Ghraib.
methods to be able to get away with it.
I think that that's more of a war thing that happens though, or like a
Yeah.
military operation,
It's
More so than-
more often, yeah, war thing.
more than like a domestic problem. And I think it's really doesn't have its place in the conversation, but it should be mentioned.
Yeah, I mean personally, I'm against torture.
Yeah, I think generally I can say I'm against torture too.
Yeah, I don't. I think this is something that all parties have consensus
Wait.
on because
Not related to terrorism or war, but Syria has like an extreme amount of prison torture.
oh yeah, Syria, yeah, actually torture. Yeah, I mean it occurs in the developing world.
What you guys... Here's like what I think is a really interesting question to examine with regards to the death penalty. Is
Alright.
do you think that there are some criminals who just can't be rehabilitated? Not that they should necessarily get the death penalty, but that's still
Literally can't,
conceivable that there are some criminals who like should either get like life in prison or death penalty because they just can't be rehabilitated at all.
I don't think there's no room for redemption.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
criminals with like severe mental health issues. Like if you look
Yeah.
at serial killers, there's no way you could rehabilitate somebody like Ted Bundy, right?
In that situation, I'd still say they're a victim, not in how like someone bullied them. I mean, not necessarily in the sense that someone bullied them, but I'd say they're a victim in the sense that it's a tragedy that they see the world the way that they see it. So, I'd still be for prison punishment as opposed to death penalty, just because of how I feel sympathy for them for not being able
Man.
to see the world in an ordinary perspective.
I think I already said my point on this. I think there definitely are some people who should be put into the death penalty. And the example of serial killers, that's actually a really good example for this topic. Mostly because I think that, yes, they all suffered from major health issues and trauma, but I think that when you look at the other side of the scale and what they did, like, for the most common example, Jeffrey Dahmer, what he did was so outlandishly horrible. I think that it's just really not something you could really, like, put into a prison system and feel good about yourself after doing that. I feel like the only real response to that is the death penalty. To something of that level, of course.
He does, kill.
Hmm? So-
What do you think? What would you say the most ethical method of carrying out a death penalty?
Injection?
I didn't put that much thought into it. I've really just been thinking about the idea of it more than the methods.
I'd say injection is probably the most ethical way to go about it. Something's quick and painless.
There
Hydraulic press,
But the thing is, how would
microwave.
Roman
Death by
Roman
microwave. No. Death by Albert.
Golden bowl?
Death by Albert.
Yes, that one.
It's like Rohit. How would you get like the doctors to actually implement that if they have something like the Hippocratic Oath?
Me
Oh,
personally,
that is a good
me
point.
personally, thinking about it, just something I came up with out of the blue.
Well,
I think it's more. I think someone can go against this if it makes sense. I think 44 Magnum does its job. point blank.
Okay.
Single shot, what, 50 cents for a round? Quick, efficient.
No, I'd still go with the injection.
No, actually, no. Hold on. I'm gonna send a statistic in the chat there, in hashtag discussion.
Matthew, as a response to your question,
Like this one.
I'd say that like a doctor wouldn't have to be the one with the serum, and we could just have the needle and give it to someone else, and train them on how to do it, as opposed to having an actual doctor hold the needle.
But the thing is, if you have something like a 7% failure rate on this thing, and if you botch the lethal injection execution, it is unethical to see somebody suffering and they don't even die from it, and they're just like suffering there because of the botched execution.
Wait,
I'm gonna be real. 44 Magnum, really quick, painless.
No, because like the
No, you
firing
gotta make it as
squad is 0%
painful as
failure.
Actually, never mind. You're right. If the firing squad has no botched execution rate, it's painless. Might as well advocate for
I'm
that
talking
one.
single person, single round. 44 Magnum, their heads clean off. Less than a second.
Like the thing, like the ethics.
telling
of it, though, like,
It has
the person pulling-
0% of failure. 0.
I'm actually surprised.
In terms of like the morality of it, or like the person, or like how this will affect the person pulling the trigger psychologically. Because at that point, you might not see the person as a killer anymore. They might just be a helpless person tied to a chair, and you're pointing a gun at them.
That's why there has to be a lot that goes into it. It can't just be a guy with a gun. It's a lot more. Like, this person has to be completely, they know what they're doing. It's a whole thing. If that makes sense. If not, then please. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have like anything major to say about the topic? Or do you want to like do closings? Because we've been going at this for about 40 minutes now. So.
Oh, already?
What's your input on this?
Do you want me to make my take?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go for it.
Here the bears, you see
Okay,
the
because I've been
ideological-
trying to like balance out the conversation. Okay, yeah, my take. If I can like summarize it in 1 minute. Okay, I am against the death penalty, mainly because I don't think it actually succeeds in any like meaningful goals that you can have for it. It doesn't seem to deter crime. It's very expensive. I believe Rohit talked about the fact that yes, it is very expensive to go through the entire appeals process. Even that isn't perfect. For example, I'm pretty sure the United States, between 1980 and now, there's about 1,000 like people who have been confirmed to be innocent after they were killed from the death penalty, and that's when people investigate cases after the fact. That's not every single case of a death penalty. Just when we've investigated, we found that there's over 1,000 cases where someone's actually confirmed to not have committed the crime. If you're going to lower the standards to make it cheaper, you're going to increase that number more broadly. So it doesn't increase crime. It's expensive. It kills innocent people, and also it doesn't make the families of victims any more satisfied. You can talk about like vague general ideas of like justice. I wouldn't agree with them, but like you can make those arguments certainly. But in people's perception of that justice, that doesn't seem to meaningfully make a case for the death penalty, because people don't feel any better emotionally whether or not they're the perpetrator of whatever crime they committed, whether or not they go to jail for life, or whether or not they get the death penalty. So just in like every single way, I don't think the death penalty is that good. Yeah.
No, I totally see where you're coming from, because all of the goals that like it supposedly has an advantage in, it doesn't even seem to succeed in.
Yeah, I mean, you can make like Xenokill's been mostly making like arguments around around like justice, more or less. Whereas I'm going at this.
My sense of justice.
Yeah, whereas I'm going at this from like a much more consequentialistic perspective. So I do kind of understand like why he might see it a different way, even if in spite of all these pieces of information. But yeah, that's why I'm generally anti-death penalty.
Honestly, I'd agree with you.
I
just think it's a moral thing. I just think morally it's more right to do one thing than the other.
I agree with Jonathan on this case. I was actually talking about this with my mother earlier on when discussing what was going to happen with the podcast, and she presented the same point that consequentially it doesn't really do anything. People still do these horrible things.
Even morality-wise, I'd say that the idea of the death penalty is flawed. Because like I said with my earlier example, if it was a group of freedom fighters who committed a first-degree murder, do they deserve the death penalty? And yet those same people who commit first-degree murders often might see themselves as martyrs as opposed to criminals. So even the morality of it, I'd say, is like pretty gray.
Do you think, in your opinion, that they are martyrs themselves, or do you think that they are still doing an immoral action?
I say it depends from case to case. I definitely think some examples of first-degree murder are people who consider themselves martyrs, and people who consider themselves heroes, trying to provide justice when there's injustice, as opposed to individuals who just want to kill someone. I think it varies though, but that some cases are definitely people who think they're doing the justified thing.
Yeah, I don't think that we generally speak in society base the morality of people's actions on whether or not they feel that they're doing good things. Like, that certainly weighs in it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like so even though they might believe that they're doing a good thing, I think that we can still, from an outsider's perspective, like, judge whether that's a good thing regardless of whether or not. I mean, you're doing the same thing. You're saying that Xenokill perceives that the death penalty itself is a good thing, but you're attacking his perception of what is good or bad from an outsider's perspective. You're doing the exact same thing in some sense. So
that is true.
Yeah, so I don't think that's really a very good argument for it.
And I wasn't making the case that it's a good thing. I think it's more of a justified thing, because taking a human life, that's not an easy decision. But I think that something's warranted.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're like really conservative with it. Like, you're like,
some people really push that it's a good thing, and they don't realize that it's a human life at the end of the day. But you need to realize that if they've done something so horrible, in my personal opinion, they should just be killed, gotten rid of.
Do y'all want to
Anything else
do
to say?
closing thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd be down.
I'll be down also.
Sure, does anyone
Yeah.
want to give closing thoughts on it?
I have nothing to say.
I pretty much gave mine just a second ago.
Yeah.
Let me think for a moment. I mean, I'd say my stance is still the same, but I respect Xenokill's opinion a lot, in how he's not like, oh, let's just actively kill people. Rather, he sees it as like something that should, be avoided, but may be a necessary evil. Am I right when I say that, Xenokill?
Yep, pretty much on the dot.
All right, thank you. So, and because of that, I really, really respect your opinion.
I respect yours as well,
Thank you.
because I can see the point. I just know that I don't agree with it, but it definitely is a point that should be made.
Thank you.
Pretty epic. We reached some common ground, some camaraderie. Yeah.
I agree with Xenokill's method of death penalty with the 44 Magnum and pages behind it. Because for me, rather than just using an injection, I just would want a quick death and just get shot in the head. But there is such thing as firing squads. Like, yeah.
The firing squad method is actually quite effective, because what they do with the firing squad is, from what I understand, they don't they blindfold the firing squad so they don't know which one killed the person, so that way like none of the people can burn the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
They did this during World War II with Auschwitz, actually.
And also, just to put it in there, a single 44 Magnum bullet is a lot cheaper than euthanasia. like a lot cheaper.
Yeah, the truth is I stray away from
Wait,
my
so if you're
objection take.
talking about U.S. standards, then I agree. Like, in terms of euthanasia versus firearms.
I think we've gotten like we talked a lot about like all different aspects of this topic, and yeah, I think it's like a good time to close about now. So, do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had fun.
Yeah. I
Yeah. Okay, pretty epic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, I think we're gonna close this down. If anyone is watching this, if you want to potentially join a future episode of this, I'm going to be linking the Discord server down below. So you'll have the opportunity to potentially join in on this. And I really appreciate all of you coming on to talk about this topic. I really enjoyed it. This is significantly better than, I'd say, than all the episodes of the season 1, which was early 2022. And yeah, to the viewers at home, I will see you next time.